Hey everybody, what is going on? Heatsoul here. Got another Master Duel video for you all. So, we're starting off the Season 25 deck profiles. Well, we actually already did the Sprite Synchro one, but I kind of don't count that because that was really more than anything just one last farewell to Chaos Ruler. But one card we did not say farewell to at all in the latest ban list change was Mathmech Circular. And you all know me, I'm a Mathmech main. I love this deck. Summoning Circular is one of my favorite things to do. So when it comes to this card staying at 3, all I have to say is, what the hell, Konami? This card definitely should have gone to 1. Like, yeah, I love Mathmech, but, like, that doesn't mean I want this card to be at 3. I don't think that lends to the most healthy of formats, but you know what? I guess as long as it's at 3, I will continue to play 3 copies. But, yeah, no, Circular definitely needed to go to 1. Mathmech is shaping up to be, in my opinion, one of the stronger decks of the format. Which is funny, a lot of people on my tier list, well, at least a couple of people in the comment section, were saying that they don't think that Mathmech can be tier 1 because Bystial monsters exist, I guess. Which I think is, I like to refer to that as like level 1 thinking, right? Like, the existence of Bystial monsters does not mean that Mathmech is not tier 1, and I don't think it even means that Mathmech isn't the best deck of the format, because I definitely think that Mathmech is going to be the best deck of the format. Mathmech tends to play very well around Disruption, which is one of the common complaints about it, which is kind of why it baffles me when people say, oh, Bystials kill Mathmech, so it can't be the best deck. But we all know Mathmech plays are well around Disruption, so why would a Bystial matter? I don't know. But, I mean, I'm not saying Bystials don't matter to Mathmech at all, but there's just this, like, I don't know, especially when it comes to the top decks of the meta, there's always this kind of hypocrisy that people will approach it with so that they can complain about it at every aspect. Like, we can complain about Mathmech, you know, being able to dodge Disruption, but we still hate Mathmech, so we're gonna downplay it and say that Bystials are enough to stop it. It's like, it's one of the reasons why I'm so on the community about complaining about cards being the overall message we kind of, you know, send across the community, because it gives disingenuous takes about how strong a deck actually is in the format. So, also, I don't know why Bystials would be a problem for Mathmech moving forward, because there's going to be a lot less of them in the format. I don't think Dragon Link is dead as a deck, but a lot of people do, so a lot of people are going to fall off of playing Dragon Link, leaving Branded as one of the main decks that's actually going to be playing Bystials in the meta, as well as Vanquish Soul too, and of course a number of other decks, but we are playing Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion with the Bystial cards in mind. While I don't think one Bystial always kills a Mathmech line, it is definitely still rather annoying to deal with. Plus, Ghost Spell is actually just very good in this meta in general. There are a lot of the top decks right now are moving cards out of the graveyard very regularly, including this one with the Superfactorial. Of course, on top of Diameter and Splash Mage, so it's also good against the other kind of projected tier 1 decks I'm thinking of for the meta. Branded, of course, has Bystials, but on top of that, it's always moving stuff out of the graveyard. Same with Vanquish Soul. Not only do they have Bystials, but Rock of the Vanquisher is a very, very good effect to negate with the Ghost Spell as well. So, I think that moving forward, it's definitely correct to play Ghost Spell in your Mathmech deck. I'm even thinking a third copy. I'm already on 2, and I'm already kind of thinking about playing a third if I had the space for it. The card I think I would take out if I really wanted to play a third Ghost Spell is probably the second Veiler, but playing with one effect Veiler in this deck does come with some risk when it comes to Small World, because Veiler can often be a very important bridge for your Small World here. So, yeah, I mean, as far as like the build itself, I think the inclusion of Ghost Spell is the most major update I've made to Mathmech. I'm still on the Firewall package, but you do not at all have to be playing the Firewall package. Microcoder and Cynet Conflict, while I personally don't like it, is more than a viable way to play the deck. It is also just an equally valid and just very competitive way to play it still. Same with the Spirits. You can definitely play the Spirits and experience a lot of competitive success. It's one of many reasons why I think Mathmech is the best deck of the format, is unlike a lot of other meta decks, you can use, like, very, very different engines with the Mathmech cards. And it's none of them are necessarily, like, more or less optimal than the other. Again, I'm thinking of, like, Microcoder and Cynet Conflict and the Spirits. you can totally play those instead of the firewalls, and it's completely valid. You can even play Microcoder and Cynet Conflict in addition to the firewalls or the spirits. I wouldn't play Firewalls and the Spirits in the same deck because they compete for the same normal summon slot. And already Diameter and Defenser already compete for the normal summon slot enough as it is. So, yeah, adding in more cards that want to do that is not the way to go. But, again, you can play the Firewalls with Microcoder and Cynet Conflict, and that would be fine. I'm just really not, I'm still, even at this point in time, not a fan of Microcoder and Cynet Conflict myself. The main reason that I don't like them is because, my main gripe is mainly that Cynet Conflict is just not that good of a card past exactly turn 1 if you go first, right? If you go first on turn 1 and you can set up the Cynet Conflict, then it's great. It's a counter trap Omni Negate, which is very, very strong. But, like, at literally any other point during the duel, the card is just useless. Like, of course, there are situations where you could go second, set it, and it comes up, but generally speaking, for most combo lines or games you're going to be thinking about, Cynet Conflict just does not do much if you don't go first. And then also if you don't get it on your first turn going first, because, like, it's not the kind of card you want to be top decking later in the duel when you really need to see, like, Circular or just some kind of starter in general. The other reason that I'm not super into it is because it's kind of hard to run Singularity with it in the same deck. It can be done, it's just a little bit difficult because to set up the Cynet Conflict, you need to go into Terahertz plus Heatsoul on turn 1. But I think that Singularity plus Terahertz is just better, honestly, if you have the Circular / Defensor plus, you know, one of your many extenders as well, right? Also, like, we already put out negates with the Desavewurm, with the Aggregator that can be sent off of the Terahertz as well, as the Diameter's Omni Negate too. So in my opinion, rather than adding another negate and draws that might lead to something, I'd rather just have the multiple bounces, honestly, from the Singularity. That's debatable. That's definitely debatable of which you think is better or which you prefer. But it's my opinion that having varied disruption tends to be better than just having only, you know, bounces or only destroying or only negating. Granted, if you're only going to be doing one of those things, negating is the best thing to be doing, especially Omni negates. But again, I like the idea of having bounces plus negates. And also, again, I don't like the idea of playing Cynet Conflict. Microcoder, I'm like a little bit less opposed to as a card. I think it's just easier to use / more useful, but it's mainly the Cynet Conflict itself I don't particularly like, so. Alright, I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about this build, and yeah, we're going to go ahead and check out these games. Also, another kind of Mathmech myth I wanted to debunk in this video is that Mathmech has no skill expression. For some reason, I'm like still in now 2024 still seeing people say this, which is fundamentally untrue. If you think Mathmech has no skill expression, you just don't have enough experience with the deck, because again, it's a total conflict of statements all to just shit on Mathmech, where people say, oh, Mathmech players are always able to play through multiple disrupts, but, oh, Mathmech has no skill expression. It's always the same line every time. Spoiler alert, when you get disrupted, you're not taking the same line. It takes, believe it or not, skill to pivot out of the disruption and continue into your end board anyway. So, again, that's a lot of the issues that I have with the excessive complaining in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, is that it creates disingenuous evaluations of a deck for the purpose of just shitting on the deck, which is not productive. If that's something you want to do, that's fine. But again, my whole thing is, can we have conversations other than that, please? But anyway. Alright, now, I promise, now I'm gonna break this list down card by card, and then we're gonna watch these games. We are on 2 Effect Veiler, 1 Dotscaper, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion, 1 Firewall Guardian, 1 Mathmech Sigma, 1 Mathmech Addition, 1 Mathmech Subtraction, 1 Mathmech Multiplication, 1 Mathmech Diameter, 3 Mathmech Circular, 3 Firewall Defenser, 3 Parallel Exceed, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 2 Cynet Mining, 1 Mathmech Equation, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 3 Small World, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 1 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 Mathmech Superfactorial. And that's our main deck. For our extra deck, we are on 1 Cyberse Desavewurm, 1 Primathmech Laplacian, 1 Primathmech Alembertain. As an aside, I've not felt the need for the second one pretty much since cutting this card. I think you can play 1, it's totally fine. 1 Mereologic Aggregator, 1 Salamangreat Almiraj, 1 Linguriboh, 1 Link Decoder, 1 Update Jammer, 1 Splash Mage, 1 Golem Crystal Heart, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Decode Talker Heatsoul, 1 Accesscode Talker, 1 Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid Neo Tempest Terahertz, and then finally 1 Firewall Dragon Singularity. That's going to do it for our list. Let's see these games now. Okay, our first opponent is going to be on Dragon Link, probably one of our last games against Dragon Link in its current iteration with Wyvern Burster and Chaos Ruler. Also, as I mentioned during the profile, one of the reasons, or one of the objectives I have in this video, rather, is that I want to debunk the myths that Bystials and auto win against Mathmech, and that Mathmech has 0 skill expression. We are going to be proving both these wrong with our games today. I've selected a few games that show some particularly tight play that will, again, demonstrate how this deck can play around Disruption, which, again, is very much a form of skill expression. So, look at our hand here. Hand's phenomenal. Great. Almost a custom hand. I would have replaced the Cynet Mining with an extender, but as well as maybe replace Maxx with like Ash Blossom, but honestly, Circular plus Call by itself feels like a custom hand. Like if I open those 2 cards, I'm just like, cool. I can not do necessarily whatever I want, but you know, I can go ahead and just do whatever I need to combo out here. So opponent is going to have the Ash Blossom. I'm going to use the Called By here. Funnily enough, I could have actually not used Call By here and been fine because I have the Cynet Mining. But that's if I valued Call By more than something like Maxx or Imperm, which I don't. I think these are ultimately better forms of disruption than Call By. There are some situations where, here's the other thing too, and this is actually an expression of a point of skill expression in Mathmech. There are some situations where you actually don't want to Call By something like an Ash Blossom if you can play through it anyway, if you think they might have Maxx, or if you think they're playing a deck where Call By is going to be particularly effective. So, not using Call By here could have actually been a very valid play because we have the Cynet Mining. Again, it's just that there's no card in hand. Like, if this Maxx or Imperm was a, like, much weaker card, then I would have definitely considered just not activating this Call By at all. Especially if it was, like, Dotscaper, but again, it could have even been something like, I'm trying to think, actually, of what card I would discard. Like, another copy of Cynet Mining, a Small World, something that's just generally not going to be of much use. Then, yeah, I would have let that Ash Blossom go. But there are a lot of players who would have called by it anyway, like, automatically, who would just always call by an Ash Blossom against an Alembertain. So yeah, here, I'm just going for the standard kind of Circular by itself combo line without an extender. That is to just go for the Neo Tempest Terahertz. Because even going for Singularity utilizing the Cynet Mining, I do think that Imperm and Maxx are probably stronger than Singularity. That might sound a little bit weird. Well, I guess Imperm in particular, I don't know. The other thing too, well, the other reason to keep Cynet Mining, I think the main thing I was thinking in this game is that if nothing else at all, I know I have follow-up plays because I have this Cynet Mining. So that is another reason to keep it, but I'm thinking back to what I said in the profile, and if I value bounces over a negate, well, that's the other thing here too, though, is that, I mean, we do have the Desavewurm in the Laplacian. Yeah, if I value bounces over a negate, then I wonder why I valued the Imperm over the extender in this situation here. That's an interesting bit of, like, psychology to kind of pick apart there. So, yeah. Also, I wanted to talk about this. I actually talked over myself here a little bit. Where is it? The use of the Superfactorial here. I noticed I chained it when my opponent activated the Bystial Rebellion. The thing about Superfactorial is that, while, yes, you very much would love to snipe at least one card off of the field with it, if you don't get that opportunity, but you still need to activate Superfactorial, definitely do it. Like, when I see my opponent activating Bystial Rebellion after having not used a Bystial against me on their turn at all, then I'm definitely going to be chaining the Superfactorial here. And again, I think this is also why it's really important to have your toggle set to on pretty much all the time during your opponent's turn, especially if you're playing a deck like Mathmech, where, like, I need to set up the Laplacian Omni Negate, not when I need it, but before I need it. But at the same time, I still want to get the maximum amount of value off of the Laplacian sniping cards out of the hand and also popping cards that are on the field. That is a constant risk and reward that you have to have in mind during your opponent's turn. So here, when I see my opponent activate the Bystial Rebellion's effect, the risk immediately is no longer worth the reward of holding on to the Superfactorial. I'm just going to go ahead and use it here. I also note that I negated the Bystial Jurisform effect with the Laplacian, even though I have already, fired off all my stuff. That's, of course, because they're targeting the Desavewurm, and that might seem weird to use an Omni to stop a card that is a spell trap negate. But the reason that I did it is because Laplacian's Omni only lasts for the entirety of the turn. The Desavewurm, as long as it hangs out in my graveyard, if I don't need it this turn, I can potentially use it for a future follow-up turn. On top of that, I already have the ability to stop monster effects too if I need to with Imperm. So losing a conditional Omni to keep a less conditional spell trap negate when I already have a less conditional monster effect negate, plus the potential to also negate with the aggregator sent off of the Dark Fluid, means that I am fine using the Omni negate here. Again, these are all things that people so very easily overlook when they make a blanket statement about a deck like Mathmech. I generally think that anybody who makes a blanket statement that X deck is autopilot, quote-unquote, or quote-unquote takes no skill, is always wrong. They're literally always wrong, for the reasons that I'm explaining here. There is always some degree of nuance to the disruption that you're using, right? Like, setting up the end board might not seem like it takes a lot, but utilizing that end board does. And also, here's the thing too, like, a lot of the time, if you're seeing a combo deck do the same line over and over again, and they always do the same line to always set up the same board, there's a good chance you're honestly just not putting up enough disruption to challenge them to do something different. Now again, I can hear the people saying, but Mathmech always plays through disruption, which again, is a form of skill expression. I don't know what else to tell you at this point, like... So here I'm going to Small World for the Ash Blossom, because we already have the other copy of Ghost Spell, right? So, by utilizing Ash Blossom, we can prevent the seals from getting the search, and at this rate now, the only thing I have to worry about is the bounce, and I can play through one bounce, that's fine. But in order to play through one bounce, I'm going to be fairly non-committal in the kind of board I'm setting up. What I mean by that is, I'm not going out of my way to go into, like, Transcode right away, for example, right? I'm just setting up a bunch of kind of loose bodies on the board. Now, here I'm going for the Update Jammer, and here is where I'm really trying to bait my opponent. I figure, fine, if we're going to hang on to seals for this long, I'll just go into the access code. But, notice that I have not committed yet to making, not the transcode, sorry, but the G-Golem Crystal Heart. If I had started with G-Golem Crystal Heart and activated the effect for a transcode and just tried to go into Update Jammer access code that way, I would have been a lot more susceptible at where I could have gotten disrupted. However, I'm keeping my options open and just going straight for the access code anyway. Now, Update Jammer and Link Decoder are going to activate their effects, as well as, of course, Accesscode Talker. And I figure at the end of this chain link, my opponent's going to use the Seals effect, which they do end up doing. Yep, here it is. Now I can Ash the Seals summon from deck, and now I actually have the ability to still pivot into an OTK, because again, I haven't used my G-Golem Crystal Heart yet. Again, if I had done it through the G-Golem Crystal Heart to transcode and done it that way, my opponent could have just, again, like they did there, waited for the end of the chain link where access code is done resolving and then bounced it. And now I'd be SOL without any way to recoup or recover. But because, again, I made sure to play it in such a way to leave myself an out, also using the Link Decoder to give myself extra bodies too, we can just Crystal Heart. Also, I haven't activated Circular's effect yet, so I'm not locked into attacking with only one monster. But even if I had activated Circular's effect and had only been locked into attacking with one monster, I could have actually still won there. I just would have needed to use the Parallel Exceed in the middle zone as the link material for G-Golem Crystal Heart instead. Then I can G-Golem Crystal Heart, bring back the Transcode. Transcode brings back Splash Mage. Splash Mage brings back another... Transcode brings back the Update Jammer that's still in the graveyard. Then we go for Update Jammer, Transcode into Accesscode again. And by the way, neither the Update Jammer... Let me go ahead and show these two cards here. Neither Update Jammer, the effect to give multiple attacks, nor Accesscode, the effect to gain attacks, those aren't once per turn. So I could have, if I really wanted to, Update Jammered, Accesscoded again, which I would not have been able to had I just, been on autopilot and been like, oh, for follow-up, I need to summon the G-Golem and, do all that stuff. So... yeah, this is just one of many games where we're debugging the Mathmech takes no skill expression, by the way. Let's go into the next one. Okay, now we're up against Branded Despia, because I can already see the comments that are like, well, sure, you showed a game against Dragon Link, but that build's not even going to be relevant for much longer. So yeah, we'll show another very Bystial-heavy deck that is going to be relevant moving forward. That is Branded Despia. Once again, taking the first turn, and once again, we are looking really, really solid. This hand is phenomenal. We have Circular plus a bunch of Disruption, including the Ghost Spell, which will very much help against Bystials. Opponent's going to Maxx. We have the Ash Blossom here, so... the thing about Ghost Spell is, though, that you gotta keep in mind, you're not, like, auto-winning against Bystials just because you have this card in your hand. We need to be thinking about not only our turn 1 against Bystials, but also the follow-up turn, right? So, if I have a Ghost Spell in my hand, I'm actually still going to play around Bystials, because if I can help a Bystial not stopping my play, on the first turn, then I can just go ahead and use the Ghost Spell on the follow-up turn if they try to stop the Superfactorial. Here, we have to Belle against the Sarnier. We have to do it. But, again, like I said, having Ghost Spell does not mean we auto-win against this Bystial monster, because we still need to keep it in mind for the Superfactorial. So, we're going to be playing a little bit differently with that in mind. I mean, not this part of the line. Like, obviously, all we have is one Circular to combo with, so we're just doing the one Circular line. But, again, when it comes to how we're using this board that we're setting up, we're going to need to be very, very mindful of that Sarnier that's in the opponent's hand. Also note that I brought back Alembertain with the Splash Mage. You can do that to play around Bystials as well. When possible, I just like to avoid bringing out light or dark Mathmechs. Like, if I have an addition or subtraction that I can bring back off a Splash Mage, and I just need the monster to, like, go into Link Decoder anyway, I'll always target the fire monster. Okay, so we have the Terahertz setting up the Desavewurm. We're setting the Superfactorial, right? Going into the opponent's main phase, they're going to normal summon this Alembertain, going for the Branded Fusion. So I'm definitely looking to use my Desavewurm against the Branded Fusion if possible. Against Fusion deployment, I'm not only going to chain Maxx, I'm also going to chain the Terahertz here. The reason is that I know what my opponent's Fusion deploymenting for. It's Albaz. We know it's going to be Albaz, right? But the thing is, I have the means to potentially stop that with Mereologic Aggregator. The thing about Mereologic Aggregator, though, is that when you send it off of Terahertz, the effect that activates to negate an effect on the field, that's going to end up activating on a separate chain link. So, that means that we need to send Mereologic Aggregator not when we need the negate, but before we need the negate. So, at the resolution of this chain link, Albaz will be summoned off of Fusion deployment, but also Mereologic Aggregator will end up getting sent to the graveyard as well. This will trigger both cards' optional effects. My opponent is turn player. Their optional effect will trigger first, being Chain Link 1. Mine will trigger second, being Chain Link 2. However, my opponent did not activate Albaz's effect here, likely because they knew by sending Mereologic Aggregator that I was going to negate it anyway. This was a good move on my opponent's part. It leaves them open to the potential of summoning Albaz later in the turn and then getting to use this effect then. But of course, if they just, or if I just, if they just fire it off here, then they don't get that chance to then use it later. Alright, Sarnier is activating targeting my Desavewurm, and now I'm going to activate my Superfactorial. I was basically just waiting for this Salamangreat in order to flip up the Superfact. Normally, I would want to flip up Superfactorial earlier because Laplacian, much like Aggregator, if you want the Omni-Negate to be able to stop something, you need to set that up before the actual thing you need to stop. So, but again, we know they have Salamangreat in hand, so we know that we need to wait for them. And we also, with the Desavewurm, we know they have Branded Fusion, so, like, I'm not going to negate any other spell card before Branded Fusion comes down. That's why I didn't use it against the Fusion deployment, and why I opted for the Aggregator instead. This is, again, making this combo line with Circular might seem very autoplay, but how you use the resulting board so matters. It super duper matters. And it's 100% going to affect how your games play out. Alright, so the Desavewurm ends up getting eaten. I'm going to use the Laplacian here. Opponent's going to chain Super Poly, pitching the Branded opening. Thankfully, they can't actually fuse with my Laplacian. I mean, that would have resolved either way, but they have to fuse with my Terahertz there. And they're going to end up making the Mirror Jade here. But, yeah, I can just use Laplacian effect on the Branded Fusion now left in hand, and the Mirror Jade that was just summoned to the field. That'll proc Mirror Jade's effect, but yeah, whatever. My stuff's going to get battled over anyway, so that doesn't matter. Also, you might have thought, wow, Hex, that was really lucky of you to rip Ash Blossom for their Branded Fusion. But as you can see, I've already set my play up in a way that I didn't even need to rip that Ash Blossom in order to end up playing around the Branded Fusion. Now, granted, to be fair, I didn't know that they had Super Poly that was going to leave just the one card in hand, but yeah, Laplacian sniping the Branded Fusion was kind of the out I was playing towards. And my opponent just happened to play in a way that made it so I guaranteed always snipe the Branded Fusion. But again, we did get lucky and just ripped the Ash Blossom, so we're going to need to get lucky here too, but we're playing Mathmech, so of course we get lucky. I'm a Mathmech player, of course I top deck the Circular. But again, luck might have seemed like the only factor there. And to be fair, it is luck to top deck what you need, but think about the fact that we also could have top decked our Cynet Mining, or a Smorworld, or a Firewall Defenser, and then you realize, oh wait, it was actually just really lucky, or likely that we're going to top deck into plays rather than just being lucky. So, gonna summon Circular, then bring back Sigma. I already discarded Equation at the beginning of the turn, so that means that we don't get a search off of the Circular. Now, you might have seen me normal summon this Ash Blossom and thought, well, that's really weird. What are you doing that for? I'm doing that to go into the Almiraj here, and then that way Almiraj and Circular can go into the G-Golem Crystal Heart. Basically, because Terahertz is gone, if I want to OTK, it's got to be an Update Jammer Accesscode OTK. Update Jammer needs 2 level 2 or higher Cyberse monsters, so I can't just go using my Sigma as a material willy-nilly because, well, then I won't be able to go into the Update Jammer. Now, also here, going into Heatsoul might seem a little weird. Like, do you really need that extra draw before you combo? It's not the extra draw I needed, but the open link zone because of the way my arrows are pointing, right? Yeah, because I didn't have an open arrow, I wasn't able to go into Update Jammer right away, but now I can go into the access code. Just another thing to keep in mind, that your link zones, super duper, the zones that your link monsters are pointing to, super duper matter when playing this deck. Particularly if you need to play under Linguriboh while your opponent has back rows, so that way they don't use a trap card to stop you. Knowing how to play so that your arrows point in a way that you can still do something like Update Jammer into access code is very, very important. Okay, there is that duel. Let's go into the next one here. Okay, this time we are going to be playing against the mirror match. So, get to show a little bit of counterplay to our own deck here as well. We're also going to be going second this time. And as you can see, we have an Imperm, but not a lot else to work with here. Alright, opponent's going to normal summon Nabla and then activate the effects for Circular. And then, well, then their Equation. I meant to stop when they summon the Circular, because normal Nabla into Circular immediately tells me that, like, the Nabla was the only thing you have going on in that hand, right? Especially because we're using Equation for the follow-up. like super duper sign that like, yeah, our opponents just got like nothing here. It was exactly Nabla Equation, which, to be fair, with no disruption, would be a combo line, but we have the Imperm here. Now, here's another thing, too. I see this all the time on ladder, and I feel like this contributes to the "my disruption is never enough" thing that people tend to say about Mathmech, which I won't lie, there is a degree of truth to that. This deck is very, very good at playing through disruption. It's the main reason why Circular did need to go to 1, but I'm going to show you how that a situation where using Imperm on the Alembertain is so important, and that is more times than not the target you want to go for. The thing that I see people do against me all the time is negate Circular, the spell trap search. Generally speaking, on their turn 1, you should not negate this effect. The reason to not negate this search effect is that they can just overlay for the Alembertain and then add the Superfactorial anyway if that's what they need. However, if they're in a situation where you negated the Circular and you don't have any more disruption, then they can still go into the Alembertain and grab a monster instead and still set up the Terahertz. However, if you let Circular add the Superfactorial, then negate the Alembertain instead, what you've set up for them is a situation where Superfactorial can only ever summon another Alembertain if they even play more than one, right? So now, instead of having to deal with a Terahertz without a live Superfactorial, we instead deal with a negated Alembertain and a not live Superfactorial. So that is such a difference maker. That is such a difference maker in terms of the kind of board you have to play against when you are playing against Mathmech. So generally speaking, now granted, when it comes to disruption, the situation always matters. But generally speaking, if it's a Mathmech player's turn 1 and they're doing the combo line, you know, just like summoning Circular, the combo line, don't Ash Blossom or Imperm the Circular, especially if it's the only negate you have. Even if you have both, I would honestly Alembertain, Ash Blossom the Alembertain and hold the Imperm for something like Splash Mage. But if you negate Circular, they still have the ability to pivot into a Terahertz or something like that, even without Superfactorial. However, by negating the Alembertain, yes, they have Superfactorial, but it can only make another Alembertain. That's not going to do much as far as disrupting during my turn, right? So, and I mean, here I know I'm good. I have Circular, I have Diameter, I have Parallel Exceed, and Crossout. Yeah, that is a going second custom hand against the mirror match for sure. Definitely going to add the Equation for more extension off of the Circular. Going second, I generally like to do that. More times than not, I'm going to want the follow-up disruption, or follow-up extender against disruption, as opposed to a Superfactorial to try to get that off on my opponent's turn. If I have the ability to attack with Mathmech, I'm just gonna end the duel that turn. That's just what I'm gonna do here. So, Linguriboh going into Parallel Exceed. This is a really cute Superfactorial chain for my opponent. They want me to use my Linguriboh against their Superfactorial, and if I do that and tribute my Linguriboh, my Parallel Exceed cannot summon itself because there's no longer a zone for a Link monster to point to. But again, I know their Superfact is just gonna get another Alembertain. And, yeah. As you can see, I don't care about that. And my opponent knows that I don't care about that enough to concede immediately after I let it resolve. Like, that is how unimportant that Superfactorial is. So, yeah, again, when you have, especially one negate against the Mathmech board, I still, to this day, all the time, see people using it against Circular. Don't do that. Do not do that. If you have one Ash or Imperm against a Mathmech line, do it on Alembertain. And again, even if you have Ash plus Imperm, I still would not negate Circular. I would Ash the Alembertain and hold the Imperm for something later in the turn like Splash Mage or Transcode. Probably one of those two cards. At that point, it super depends on how they extend afterward. But, yeah, I mean, that's just... that, I think, again, is a contributing factor as to why people find Mathmech so frustrating to play against. And, again, there is a degree of truth to the deck can play through Disruption well, but definitely make them play well. Definitely make sure you're playing your Disruption well, too. We have one more game to see. We're going to go ahead and go into that here. Alright, our final duel is going to be up against Vanquish Soul. So, I mean, we definitely hit all of the most important decks of both the last meta and the upcoming one here in this video. Again, facing D-Link, Branded, the Mirror, and now Vanquish Soul. We're going to be going first here. Opening Defenser and Circular with Call By is very, very good. I'm going to make a misplay in this game, and I'm going to talk about it. I got very, very greedy in this game. And it's actually right here. So our opponent's going to use the Ash Blossom against the Firewall Defenser. Now, as I talked about in one of the previous games, I'm of the opinion that if you don't need to call by something like an Ash Blossom, then, I mean, generally speaking, it's better to call by it than not. However, there are some situations where you might be able to get away without using the call by. I mistakenly believed that this was one of them here. However, things are going to get awkward moving forward because I didn't use my normal summon. Or rather, I have already used my normal summon. So, that makes the resulting play here pretty bad. Because I thought I was able to normal summon this other Circular in my hand and get the search for the Superfactorial that way. Except, oops, I somehow blinked on the fact that I immediately used my normal summon for Firewall Defenser. So, yeah, I got really greedy with the call by because, and again, it was because I mistakenly believed I could just normal summon Circular while I had the other one out and get the search anyway. But, yeah, here we're going to end up setting the Terahertz up all the same. Although, this will also give us an opportunity to show what I was talking about in the last game, why negating the Circular but not the Alembertain is not that great. Because, if you'll remember, when that Ash Blossom actually got used... Oh no, it was against the Defenser. But again, I think still my opponent... I don't know. I guess in this situation, using it against Firewall Defenser isn't the worst decision in the world. Like, it does kind of force me to have... I mean, it forces me to have Circular, or Small World, or Cynet Mining, which I say that, but that is still 8 cards, which is like 20% of your deck, so... I don't know. I think I might have still waited here, personally, but that's a little more understandable. Using Ash Blossom against Defenser is definitely more understandable than using it against Circular, in my opinion. But, you know, I still have quite a few negates, right? Like, I still have the Desavewurm, the Imperm, the Call By, as well as the Terahertz sending the... where is it? The Aggregator here. They're going to immediately call by on the Desavewurm. Gonna have to let that go. There's no way I can really stop that. And now they're activating a reinforcement of the army, grabbing Vanquish Soul Raisin. Normal summon Raisin. I'm absolutely going to Imperm this. Now, I will say against Vanquish Soul, you definitely take a risk using Imperm against Raisin, because if they have Valius or Borger in hand, they can bounce and dodge it, and then you're in a lot of trouble at that point. There are some people who save the Imperm for the Rock of the Vanquisher, and I think turn 1, that's pretty good / more understandable. Here on turn 2, though, I think that holding the Imperm would be a little bit greedy. Like, I don't know, it's interesting, right? Using Imperm against Raisin or not, I think is a legit debate, and I could see arguments for either side when it comes to turn 1. Turn 2, though, like, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and use the Imperm here. Like, if they have Borger, like, you know, I might already be in trouble anyway. So, but thankfully they don't, so I get to negate the Raisin here. The follow-up Desires is gonna be a little bit painful, but we're just gonna have to hope they don't get too much here. Well, the other thing too here is that I have Called By, right? So if they try to use the... Well, to be fair, I want to negate the Summon from Hand effect anyway. I'm gonna use Terahertz in response with the Aggregator to negate whatever ends up getting summoned, which in this case was Mad Love. So, again, another instance of sending the Aggregator before the effect needs to be used. You've got to make sure that you're doing that. Also, the reason that I didn't try to preempt and negate the Rock of the Vanquisher with the Aggregator is that Rock of the Vanquisher is a quick effect. So, if I activate my Terahertz effect at a seemingly random time, an opponent who knows that I'm trying to send Aggregator would know to chain Rock of the Vanquisher's effect in response to then dodge the Aggregator. Although, to be fair, then I can just hit whatever is going to end up coming out anyway. But to ultimately play it at the safest, I decided to wait until they activated Rock to summon a Vanquish Soul monster from hand, and then just negate that. I thought it was going to end up negating like a Borgia or a Valius with that aggregator, but I'll definitely negate a Madlove here too. And then yeah, we negated the Raisin, we negated the Madlove, so I think we should be good here. They do have the Tick Boo, which normally would be very annoying, but thankfully we already went first, and we already have the Terahertz here on the board, so not super duper concerned about that. I'm moving to battle phase before activating the Terahertz effect. The reason to do this, and you should always be doing this if possible, is moving to battle phase before you activate Terahertz. It's because of the first line of Terahertz, to get any monster effects activated by your opponent during the battle phase. This quick effect can get hit with Ash Blossom, but if your opponent tries to use Ash Blossom during the battle phase, Terahertz will just negate it. So they're going to chain the Dust Devil here, trying to put the Madlove in defense mode. So we need to make sure that we're sending a monster that is not dark with Terahertz to make sure we get multiple attacks. Now, granted, Multiplication, our attack doubler, is Earth anyway, which makes it a good target to send, but just remember that Terahertz does not get multiple attacks for every card that it sends. It gets multiple attacks for every different attribute among cards that you send. And the thing about Desavewurm as well as Aggregator is that they're both dark. So sending both of those will definitely beef up your Terahertz, but it does not give it multiple attacks. If you need multiple attacks, you gotta send just another non-dark Cyberse monster, which again, Multiplication, the thing we mainly want to send when we're battling, is an Earth anyway. So there we go. That's definitely a bit longer than I usually make these deck profile videos, but I really wanted to carefully break down each and every one of these games to, again, debunk the idea that Mathmech takes zero seal expression to play, and also the idea that Mathmech cannot be tier 1 or the best deck because of the existence of Bystial monsters. Because, as we've demonstrated, if you are able to utilize your not just your end board disruption, but also the pieces in your hand well, then you can, in turn, play around a lot of that kind of disruption very well. Which, again, I will say, as I've said multiple times, that bit of complaining about Mathmech is actually valid. A good Mathmech player can absolutely play through your disrupts very easily. But again, like I said before too, we got to make sure that we're using those disruptions well and not negating like Circular when we should be negating Alembertain. So, alright, that'll go ahead and do it for this here Mathmech video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Let us go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.